and oversight than these smaller watersheds are. The State Water Board has held historically 2 major hearing procedures, evidentiary hearings. They resulted in decisions which are known as Decision 1030 and Decision 1610. The board is considering reopening Decision 1610, which would change the operational requirements, in-stream flow requirements, the main stem rusher. There has a potential to do that, I should say, for both Lake Mendocino and Lake Sonoma. We do have some questions we have for Sonoma County Water Agency that the board has asked them to give us some information on the May 6th board meeting of this year. The Sonoma County Water Agency is prepared to do that. It's a 15-20 minute presentation, but it goes to the same issue on what are we going to do in the long run for the operation and maintenance of these 2 on-stream reservoirs. Also, historically, we issued a temporary approvals to allow them to reduce the in-stream flows in the main stem Russian temporarily, and these in-stream flow requirements were established under the board's decision. That was 2 years ago, and we received hundreds, if not several hundred, phone calls and concerns about lowering the flows in the main stem of the Russian during the summer months. The rafting concerns, we had a lot of concerns recreational-wise. Historically, I would say that the in-stream flows in the main stem Russian in the summer, absent Lake Sonoma, Lake Mendocino, were very, very small. We have some indications that there may not even been a visual flow at times. However, during the process, they established minimum flow requirements to Sonoma County Water Agency to afford them some opportunity for export of water and diversion of use of water to Sonoma County.
Thank you, Steve. Bob Kiefer, followed by Ellen Drell.
Thank you for the opportunity. Bob Kiefer, native Mendocino County, raised on a ranch in Hopland, spent many years rescuing and seining fingerling steelhead trout out of all the tributaries within Mendocino County. And currently I work for the University of California down at the Hopland Research and Extension Center. Everybody certainly realizes that this is an incredibly complex issue. I don't really have any specific questions. I have, I think, 3 comments that I would like to make. My background is in wildlife management, and like I said, I've spent some time in all the tributaries of the Russian River here in Mendocino County working with young steelhead trout. I've worked on other anadromous salmonid issues here in the county, and I'd just like to state my opinion, my personal opinion. I'm not convinced that this methodology and this policy is really going to improve the dwindling anadromous fisheries populations in our area, and that was talked about by members of the board earlier. I have a concern that some of the small existing impoundments that are in place may have very limited possibilities for bypass due to either the physical or the economic constraints of the land or the landowner, and to deal with those in the long run, to do something about them would probably result in increased sediment and erosion due to some sort of impractical methodology for either the bypass or the removal. It's just, I don't know, it's just bizarre. I see in some of our narrow drainages where these impoundments are in place that it's really almost an impossibility. So that's just one little minor concern. From a wildlife point of view, like I said, my background's in wildlife management. I'm an intense bird watcher. I can tell you that within our county in Mendocino, we have at least 3 man-made water impoundments that now provide habitat for nesting colonies of tricolored blackbirds, which are a species of concern within the state. It's a species that is really only found in California. And so I don't know if the policy has addressed, I mean, you mentioned that some of these other critical wildlife species have been looked at and will be looked at on an individual basis, but I just want to make that concern. I think some of these man-made impoundments are really providing very, very key wetland habitat within Mendocino County, and it's a type of habitat that is very, very, very limited. So it's just a few comments I had. I just wanted to make my presence known that, that I know a whole bunch of people out there who are very, very concerned about this policy, and they are not sitting here, but there are a lot of people out there concerned. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Kiefer.
No comment.
Okay. Ellen Drell, followed by Tim Nall.
My name's Ellen Drell, and I have some questions that I'd like to ask on behalf of the Willits Environmental Center. I also would like to quickly state, I don't know if it's fact or opinion, but it comes from many fishery biologists, but I think that everyone would agree that one of the major limiting factors to the success of salmonids is water in the streams. If there isn't sufficient water, they don't do well. And when we have a good water year, fishery biologists see a lot more fish. I'm assuming, based on the stated objective of this policy, is that the board considers that it is responsible, that there is enough water in streams to make the situation protective of fish. So my first question is, do you think the current situation is protective of fish? And if not, how will this policy, if it doesn't address existing water rights or the backlog of applications, make the situation protective of fish? And my second question is, who is responsible, possibly it's the board, to find and deal with the hundreds, likely thousands of illegal diversions that exist in our county and undoubtedly elsewhere? And my third question is, if you don't have sufficient funding now to carry out your present mandates, how will you possibly review, monitor, and enforce the proposed policy if you don't put in place virtually an army of staff people? And I, frankly, can speak for our organization. We think that there should be an army of staff people, at least to get this policy up and off the ground and get data in place. So I'm not necessarily opposed to the intent of the policy, but unless there is funding in place to actually make it real, it's no better than the paper it's written on. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Drell. Steve?
Okay.
Would you like to tackle that?
There's a few here. The current, she asked the question about the current situation, is that protective of fish? Yes and no. There are some diversions in use which we have permitted that have, if you will, protective measures built into their approval process, which we think and especially at the time, based on the science at the time, that they are protective. However, there's many of these who were approved historically without any measures for environmental concerns or protective measures. So whether they are or not, one has made the argument to us on several occasions that it's one of the reasons some of these fish are listed is because of many of these diversions do not have any restrictions on their facilities, and there's no bypass requirements to where they have to bypass any stream flows. They operate them essentially on stream and have some problems. Those have been expressed to us as well. A little bit of the background in trying to address those in the policy. So is the current status protective of fish? I'd say yes and no. The backlog, will it address the fishery concerns? And she raised an issue about illegal diversions and use of water. We figure there's a huge number of illegal ponds or unauthorized ponds